First, before we begin, I'd like to introduce, who's going to be joining us. But before I do that, I want to actually take a minute and thank the bench team, Jonathan Vosley, we've got his team, Dana and Ali and others. If we can have a round of applause for the bench for putting together what is in principle a fantastic summit. And now we'll move on to a couple of other things. Thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Gaurav Sinha. I'm the CEO and Chief Strategist for Insignia. Insignia Worldwide is very privileged to be working in the Kingdom on a number of different projects, both at a vision guardianship level, at a destination design level, and at experience creation level. Hospitality, for me, is the front line of cultural diplomacy for a nation. How hospitable you are positions you as a nation on the world stage. It impacts your GDP. Similarly, hospitality is a human business, and it's all the greatest journeys are usually from one heart to another. So today, as much as we'd like to talk about a number of different things when it comes to how key strategic imperatives are being addressed, at the end of the day, we also need to master the art of marketing. How do you actually promote a place? So I'd like to welcome to the panel Kiran J. Haslam. If you'd like to please join us. He's the Chief Marketing Officer of Diriyah Gate Development Authority. And Abdullah Alzahrani, who's the Executive Director of Brand and Marketing for the Red Sea Development Company. So we've just had the CEOs come and speak on both of these wonderful organizations and the projects and the audacious ambitions that they have. And now I'd like to talk more from a customer-centric perspective. And we're going to have about 30 minutes, hopefully, of a conversation that has not already been discussed and covered by Jerry, and John's comments already that have been shared with us. But I'm going to move across and join them, and then we'll continue the conversation. So if you can hear me, I'd first like to thank you, Abdullah. Kiran, pleasure to meet you both. Again, we've had brief conversations together on a number of different topics, and I've met some of you on remotely, and then I've spent a fair amount of time with others. There are so many exciting things happening in the Kingdom, as you know. It's fascinating to witness this generational opportunity. I think, as John was saying earlier, with regards to what's happening in the Kingdom, we have tremendous amounts of torch-bearing initiatives for Vision 2030, whether it's NEOM, Qiddiya, Diriyah Gate, Red Sea Development Company. And then we also know that there is going to be a great shift and a thrust towards Tier 2 cities and looking at inclusive tourism and all of these various things that are happening in the Kingdom. Now, my first question, I'd like to, we talked about Red Sea Development Company and its, sustainability goals, the ceiling on 1 million tourists coming in. And I want to sort of tilt the conversation a little bit, maybe look at it from the guest or visitor experience perspective. You obviously have a lot of fluency and knowledge about the core attributes of your projects. But I'm going to start, Kiran, with yourself. We see that there is so much, activity from a marketing perspective. You've captured the imagination of the people. We know Saudi tourism is running global campaigns to promote Saudi Arabia. How do you go about balancing the art of trying to sell a destination when we know very well also that great places are discovered, not sold?
Sure, it's a great question, and thank you to everybody for being here and for the opportunity to talk to you today. I think the really remarkable thing about Saudi culture, and I'm really fortunate that from a very young age I had close friends who were from Saudi. So I understood something about Saudi culture, which over the years of my life I realized a lot of people around the world didn't quite understand, because they weren't open to interpret Saudi Arabia in any specific way, due to the usual wonderful friends that we have in the media who generally tend to fall into the ruts of stereotypes. And by that I mean, think about a Hollywood film from 20 years ago. That stereotype is still echoing out today. The reality of Saudi is very, very different. And I think, as the two speakers prior to us alluded to, when people encounter it, they feel it, and it has to be meaningful and it has to be authentic. One of the ways in which you do that, and it's a specific challenge for us with our project, is to do that in an organic manner. So you can't really stand on the corner and you can't really tell people how great you are. They have to feel it first, and then they'll be open to interpret it through particular means. The great thing about this, Gaurav, is that's actually key to Saudi culture, this modesty. You don't find, that cheerleader behavior coming from, look at me, I'm Saudi, and I have to tell you about how we are. Sadly, that's paved the way for some of those stereotypes over the years to take hold. But in an ironic kind of turn of behavior, it gives us the best opportunity now for people to feel us in a very authentic and meaningful manner. A lot of the time, we don't prepare people for what they experience when they come to Salwa Palace and when they come to At-Turayf, and we let them tell us what they feel. And I think getting that tonality right and getting that understanding that this is the Saudi for you to discover. I think we see the proof of this in the first wave of tourism that's sweeping through Saudi Arabia is definitely the more intrepid. It's the person who wants to see something that they never really thought they'd see before, or that no one else or any of their peers had seen before. And so that seems to be the first doorway that's opening for this discovery. I think stressing the word organic there is important.
That's a fair point. No, thank you for that. And I think, in many ways, I think when it comes to heritage and preservation and progress, balancing I guess in many ways, the art of preserving the authentic heritage component, but at the same time, trying to progress and develop the infrastructure to include whether it's tourism, whether it's other ancillary components from a community building perspective. I would imagine that you have to also find a path to balance those components as you deal with the activation of a authentic narrative.
You do, and I'm going to be really honest here. There are two words which I really don't enjoy in life. One of those words is luxury, totally misappropriated most of the time, and the other word is sustainability. And I'll explain that really simply. Sustainability has become a mitigation tool. We're doing something which is not right for the planet. We're going to mitigate it and just continue doing what we're doing, as opposed to correct our behaviors to do what's right for the planet. And I think when you think about sustainability through the idea that we have to do more, there's probably no one in this room who would disagree with me that the feeling is that we have to do more. We have to go beyond that. But the problem when you talk about sustainability is that everyone falls into the train of thought of plastic bottles, recycling, waste management. There's a holistic understanding of sustainability. How do you sustain culture? A great example of this is Wales, right? So Wales was one of the first areas of the United Kingdom to insist on being able to continue the Welsh language. That is sustainability. So when you start to think about those reference points, you realize that sustainability can be something which is really meaningful and really enticing, and we can approach things from that way. And that's one of the approaches that we've taken to say, how is Saudi culture going to be celebrated? How is it going to be felt? How is it going to be imparted? And from a hospitality perspective, how do we make sure that first and foremost, that's the reference point for everybody to go home with? Whether that home is in the kingdom and they're just visiting us in Diriyah, or whether that home is in the GCC or further afield in the United States or Australia. So sustainability from that perspective means holistic thinking for us, and culture is very, very important, and the human spirit, the conviction comes from interaction. You have those really meaningful cultural exchanges when it's person to person. So that's one of the ways.
And I couldn't agree with you more. In many ways, luxury has become a bit of a hollow word used very loosely, and in many ways you could say sustainability has a multi-dimensional quotient to it, whether it's sustainable value, even from a commercial viability perspective.
Yeah.
The broader constituents all have specific needs, and they all need to be addressed. Now I'm going to ask Abdullah for yourself, when we talk about sustainability, there's an old joke in the industry which says, which is the most sustainable hotel in the world? And the answer is the one that never got built, right? So in many ways, there's a sort of idiosyncratic component of how do you balance these components around sustainability. So I've got a two-part question. One is sustainability from the lens of the Red Sea Development Company. And the second is also how What do you think is the biggest challenge you face that you will need to address from a managing perceptions about the Red Sea project?
So first of all, Gaurav, I think this joke not going to be a joke anymore in next year, because this sustainable hotel and resort is going to be experienced in Red Sea and other destinations that coming soon in the future in Saudi Arabia. For us in the company, and both destination with the Red Sea and AMAALA, our strategy goes beyond sustainability. We believe sustainability is just protecting the area as it is. But we go beyond that. Our aim is to add 30% to the conservation value and making the environment as part of the experience for guests that to come to the destination and experience. Not only from environment, but also from social economic point of view. As you know, Gaurav, and as most of the audience knows, this destination not built to add a number of destinations to the world. The aim of building Red Sea, AMAALA, and other projects in Saudi Arabia is to, number one, diversify the economy of Saudi Arabia. Number two is to add valuable locations to the entire world. And by doing that, changing the perception and changing the way people and travelers can experience new destinations in the world. That's why we are considering the sustainability in all the phases of building the destination, developing the destination, from concept to build and to execute and to operate in the future. And I believe Red Sea Development Company has been leading the way in regenerative tourism and setting new standards in that.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think when it comes to regenerative tourism, we talked about regenerative sustainability, biodiversity. We talk about similarly in many different ways. What do you think is the balance, Kiran, from a regenerative component to actually preserving and making sure that the community empowerment components, how do you reconcile that? Because you could say regenerative is maybe in the early stages of what luxury has become today.
It all works together. It's the full life cycle analysis. So they all feed into each other. You can't have one and then have one going off on another tangent, doing what they always do. And so I'll give you this great example. It's a really top-level thinking example, but the whole concept of hospitality and tourism in Saudi Arabia is one which diverts a GDP stream away from something which is less planet first over to something which is more planet first. That in itself is a giant milestone step in our understanding. But I think when I look at my kids, they're 11 and 14 now, it's been at least 4 years in their lives where they have been hounding me to say, you guys are dinosaurs. You don't see the planet in the same way that we do, because when you talk about sustainability, Dad, you're thinking about it from this way. It's obvious to us that it has to be this way. And I think that next generation that's coming through is remarkable, and they will create that change so that it's all in balance. That next wave, by the way, Gaurav, is remarkable. I'm not sure if anyone in the room has looked into the Kantar data over the last 12 to 24 months. But if you have a look at planet first perspective from a survey done in Saudi Arabia of Saudi Arabian nationals, it has literally doubled in the last 12 months the concept of planet first, which is truly remarkable. I'm hoping secretly that when I go to the grocery store, the guy who's helping me pack my groceries also takes that into consideration and doesn't put everything in a separate plastic bag. But that's the wave which is going to drive this change, and it's that new generation coming into the workforce.
Fair point. And I've got now another question for both of you. I'm going to start with yourself or Abdullah. But the question that I have is not, I don't think controversial, but an important one. Like, you've got to call the elephant out. There's an elephant in the room with regards to hospitality brands per se. We know we need the legacy operators. We know that you need hard brands. But then how do you reconcile authenticity by either bringing a large legacy operator's badge and assigning that on the door of a resort or a city hotel in the heritage context? How do you balance that? Because you've got so many hotels you're opening, so many resorts that are being built, and through this process, you obviously need the hard brands because they bring credibility, they bring operational efficiencies, they bring a certain aspirational standard. But then how do you protect the authenticity by the same time creating your own brand concepts? What is authentic to Diriyah? what is authentic to the Red Sea Development Company, which doesn't necessarily. How do you balance that from a development perspective, from a brand positioning perspective? Maybe you'd like to start with that and share some thoughts.
Yeah, of course. As you know, in Red Sea, we are bringing these brands for many reasons. One of them, we are introducing undiscovered destination, undiscovered place in a country that's not well known for tourism or for visitings from outside of country, aside from the religious tourism. So this is one and big reason why you need to attract those big names to come and operate. I believe the operating model within the destination that's going to allow us to protect the authenticity of the destination. And definitely in the end of the day, people will come not only to stay in the branded hotel, they come to experience the entire destination, whether from culture, from heritage, and from other aspects that we are going to offer in the destination. So I think we are going to complement each other more than having a competing each other. And again, having this operational model with the operators will help us to protect the authenticity within the destinations. And I believe all the brands that we select to come and operate the destination are sharing the same value that we have in Red Sea and AMAALA.
Thank you. Kiran, how would you respond to that from a heritage perspective?
So let me answer it first from a branding perspective and a marketing outlook. The second you try to be something for everybody, it's a slippery slope to being something for no one. And I think there'll always be that niche requirement. There'll always be that particular traveler who says, I only stay in Four Seasons. I only stay in the Rosewood, right? What's remarkable for me was once when I was on my travels and I was in Latin America and someone referred to a hotel. I won't say the name of the hotel, but they referred to it and said, Southeast Asian hospitality in Latin America. Great, okay. I don't think there are very many people in the room who would argue that Southeast Asian hospitality is a unique particular offering, and great, it's a wonderful thing. What if these large operators come in to Saudi Arabia and they participate and they're sitting shoulder to shoulder with some of the smaller Saudi operators, the more boutique offerings, and they learn a thing or two from that? And what if Saudi hospitality was to be exported? Because that's ultimately the goal, right? So that people from other parts of the world go, do you know what, that's uniquely Saudi Arabian hospitality. That hotel operator is now morphed and is starting to utilize that in the way in which they operate. So I don't think it's these great big operators coming in and taking our territory and stealing away from the more boutique Saudi offering. I think that they can learn a thing or two and they can bring it into the way in which they impart their hospitality offering around the world.
And I think it's broadly happening on the fringes because there is obviously a great opportunity to create the next Four Seasons, the next Saudi Amman, which is something that you can take and authentically unbox and export. I would imagine those are the conversations that are being discussed in the boardrooms too.
And we do have successful examples in the region that where there is a brand that built in the region and been taken to somewhere else in the world. And this is the aim of having in the future one brand that can born in the Saudi, one with the destination, and we can take it internationally as well.
So thank you for sharing that. So on my other question now is, we know that the Ministry of Tourism has a very robust roadmap of what they're doing to encourage awareness for the kingdom as a tourism destination. Can you share with the audience a little bit more about the feeder markets that are important to you? Which are the markets that you're concentrating on? Are there specific segments that you're focusing on initially? Just maybe explain to the audience a little bit about what that sort of lens on feeder markets looks like.
Sure, and I think it's going to continue to evolve as we're finding our feet and we're all trying to bring people here, right? So there are the obvious markets, the markets will have a substantial disposable income wealth, in particular age demographics, who have a propensity to travel. So obviously, North America is an important market for the world of tourism, not just alone Saudi Arabia, but it's one that we also stand to gain a significant mindset change from, because it's also a market that really has a rather large misunderstanding of the actual offering within Saudi Arabia. So we target that from that perspective, as well as the volume of visitation perspective, which is where Ministry of Tourism and STA would be looking at it first and foremost. The other markets which are key are those markets which tend to be market leaders, but you then still find a propensity for travel and this openness to explore Saudi and then go back and impart that message of Saudi. And by that, the typical markets are Spain, Italy, France, Germany. And as you go more into the Scandinavian countries, these are countries which haven't had the access in volume or haven't had the boots on the ground to explore Saudi Arabia yet. So we're also looking at these newer opportunity markets to come in as well.
And yourself, Abdullah, for the Red Sea.
So for the Red Sea, as you know, in the Saudis' DNA, they love to travel and they love to explore multiple destinations around the world. And one reason why, because we don't have that offerings in the country. And by opening the destination next year, early next year, we are pretty much having in mind that 50% from our visitors are going to be from domestic market. And we are going to expand it to the regional market as well to reach up to 70%. Definitely, we have a plan to bring visitors from Europe and from Asia, and moving up to completing the opening of the destination, we are going to target the whole visitors and affluent travelers from around the world.
And it must be fascinating to also how you have to balance real estate, tourism, and hospitality. Where in real estate, you're also selling real estate. In your case, you will have, residences where people will have communities too. So it's a living, breathing heritage district in many ways. And then you have the reconciliation of understanding some of the broader tourism constituents that are engaged, whether it's a DMC or whether it's whether it's F&B and all the other ancillary pieces that occur to create a integrated, successful tourism destination. So my question here would be, having observed what is happening in the region, certain mature markets, our neighbors, that we have seen have become, tourism, mainstream tourism destinations. What do you think are the key learnings or challenges that we need to be mindful of as we go to market with regards to whether it's overdevelopment, speed to market? We know we've got Vision 2030. We know we've got, a great desire to convert vision to reality. What learnings or challenges, where do you see potential challenges where you could go wrong and what you have to avoid as Diriyah Gate as well as Red Sea? And what would be the message to the broader ecosystem from a tourism perspective?
It's not so much of a warning message. I think the maturity of market due to COVID has really astounded everybody across the world. So our domestic tourism market is incredible in Saudi right now. As other parts of the world open up, I think the only thing that we have to be mindful of is the ebb and flow of that domestic tourism market. It affects us as heavily as it affects our colleagues at the Red Sea. One of the elements, I think, which is important to always recognize in this, though, is as that promise of what you do for a domestic market starts to evolve, you have to be able to give more and more. That's real-time programming. That's something that brings someone back. I've seen it. I'm going to come back. The learning is, how do we take what we've understood to be that draw card where there's repeat visitation on a domestic front so that we can create repeat visitation from an international or a global audience front. And that's probably one of the key ways in which we need to start to reorient our thinking.
Abdullah.
I believe for us in Red Sea is to walk the walk. We have been communicating to the entire world and the domestic market what's Red Sea going to be in the near future. So we need to be up to the promises to the world. We are gonna introduce a regenerative tourism destination. So we will introduce a regenerative tourism destination. Maybe one of the challenges is to bring like-minded brand that to partner with whether this brand in hospitality or F&B or other aspect to help the destination. So this is something that we need to make sure we are having the right partner on board with us to give the right experience for the travelers. Saudis in particular expecting something high from us, and this is what we promise, and this is what we deliver in the near future. So reaching to that promise is something we are keeping eye on, and we are gonna reach it. Internationally, definitely one of the challenges that we have historically, Red Sea has been known for the Egypt side. side for obvious reason. Egypt was there along the history as the tourism spot for international and even from the region. So this is something that we need to smartly introduce the Saudi part of the Red Sea and welcoming the world also to Saudi part of the Red Sea. That doesn't mean we are going to compete with Egypt side, but we are going to complement with the Egypt side.
Wonderful. No, I couldn't agree with you more. As you build these narratives out, because there are obviously, you're on this amazing learning, awareness curve. You're promoting destinations that were, sort of hidden treasures in many ways. You're keepers of secrets, which you're now opening up and revealing to the world. And it must be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to be able to take that from a narrative in an integrated manner. And as you do that, marketing has also evolved so much now. We know it's not about necessarily big billboards and ads and etc. Can you explain to me a little bit, maybe for the audience, and I'm conscious we've only got a few minutes left, what is your engagement strategy? Like, are you creating content and, how are you approaching this to maybe pioneer the way destinations engage with the world? Could maybe, Kiran, you could speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people actually know about the Diriyah site in Turayf, and I don't want to be repetitious in case Jerry had taken you through some of the main key features. But 300 years ago, Turayf was a thriving, bustling city, a citadel of intelligentsia. When you look at Salwa Palace, which is the iconic landmark for Diriyah, to the left was the first treasury 300 years ago, minting currency. To the right, the second largest mosque. And behind it, a co-educational, both male and female, school system teaching astrology. 300 years ago. It's a really remarkable story. So from a marketing standpoint, creating content, engaging an audience, I often feel like I'm a chef who's walked up to a kitchen countertop with all of the most incredible ingredients sitting before my eyes, that all I have to do is combine to bake the most delicious cake that everybody wants to eat. I'm not saying my job's easy, but I will say that if you just look at the proven by facts, authentic understanding of who we are and what we're trying to bring to life, we're not making anything up, we're not fabricating it, we're just opening our doors and offering it out to the world and inviting the world to come and see it for themselves. So in a strange kind of a way, it's one of the easiest things, because we're not fabricating, we're not trying to create something that doesn't really exist. Therefore, everything has significant meaning and significant value, and you want to explore it all and use it to engage a global audience as well as a local one.
Yeah. For us in Red Sea, last year we started a new marketing communication strategy called Red Sea Undiscovered. And basically, there are a huge and rich undiscovered culture, undiscovered people, and many aspects within the nature of the area as well. So we decided not to wait until 6 months before the opening of the destination and start introducing the destination. Let's start to introduce the undiscovered part of the destination. Let's build this teaser to keep it in the mind of the future guests that we are expecting to visit the destination. So we started a series of content. We called it Undiscovered, and this content show the rich culture, it show the food, it show the people, it show the crafting within the area, and this to tease the people and to show this is an existing destination, and whatever we are doing there is just to blend this culture and blend those people with the destination that we are building for the future of tourism.
Wonderful. And I think just to conclude on this, because I'm conscious we've only got a couple of minutes, I think it's fascinating to hear from both speakers talk about the fact that they are challenging the conventional luxury conversation. They are looking at addressing sustainability with a different lens, which gives me tremendous comfort as a strategist to hear that you are addressing components, which are really quite relevant and fall into mainstream sort of cliched narratives for the industry. And I think it's applaudable in many ways that you are, so much more than hospitality, so much more than tourism in many ways, because and so much more than real estate. You're in the nation building initiatives here. And I think when that comes together, bringing culture, the Saudi narrative, the rich heritage of what it lies within this wonderful land, I would imagine those nation-building initiatives allow you to accelerate and connect to the broader constituents and hopefully be uplifting towards also the Saudi youth. Human capital, they say, as I said previously, the most profound journeys are from one heart to another. So on that note, I'd like to thank you both for joining the panel.
Thank you so
We've got a minute in case anyone in the audience would like to ask a question or two.
No questions.
That means a conversation really well had. On that note, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. Thank you so much, Jonathan and the future. Thank you.